I thought I knew who I was until a stranger at the pharmacy shattered my entire life with 5 words. She went missing 25 years ago. My name is Jessica Thompson, and this is the story of how I discovered that everything I believed about myself was a lie. It started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in Portland. I was standing in line at Walgreens, feeling miserable with a sinus infection, when an older woman turned around and stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. Her face went completely white. Her hands started shaking, and then she said something that changed everything. "You look just like my sister." Now, I've heard that before. People always tell me I remind them of someone. My best friend Ashley says I have one of those faces. Generic, familiar, the kind of face that makes strangers think we went to high school together. So I smiled politely, the way you do when someone says something random in public. But this woman didn't smile back. Instead, tears started forming in her eyes. "She went missing 25 years ago," she whispered. That's when my polite smile started to fade. There was something in her voice, something raw and desperate that made my skin prickle. I laughed nervously, trying to lighten the moment. "I'm sorry to hear that. What was her name?" She stared at me for what felt like forever. Then she said 2 words that made my blood run cold. "Your name." The prescription bottle I was holding slipped from my hand. I watched it fall in slow motion, heard it hit the linoleum floor with a crack. Little white pills scattered everywhere, rolling under the candy display, bouncing off the woman's sensible brown shoes, but neither of us moved to pick them up. "My name?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "Rachel," she said. "Rachel Marie Anderson. My middle name is Rachel, Jessica Rachel Thompson. My parents told me they named me after my grandmother, but I'd never met her. She died before I was born. Or at least, that's what they said." The woman stepped closer, and I could see every line on her face, every gray hair that had probably turned that color from years of worry. "You have her eyes," she said, "green with little gold flecks, and that scar above your eyebrow." My hand moved involuntarily to touch the small scar above my right eye. I'd gotten it falling off my bike when I was 7. My dad had rushed me to the emergency room. Mom held my hand while they put in 3 tiny stitches. I remembered it perfectly. Or did I? "How old are you?" the woman asked. 32. She'd be 32. Her voice cracked on the words. She had a birthmark on her left shoulder, shaped like a crescent moon. The pharmacy suddenly felt too small, too bright. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, drowning out the soft music playing from the speakers. An elderly man behind us cleared his throat impatiently, but we didn't move. "I'm sorry," I managed to say. "I think you have me confused with someone else." But even as I said it, something cold was creeping up my spine, because I do have a birthmark on my left shoulder, shaped exactly like a crescent moon. I'd always thought it was cute, unique. My boyfriend in college used to kiss it and call it my lucky charm. The woman reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a worn photograph. This was her. This was Rachel. I looked at the photo and felt the ground shift beneath my feet. A little girl stared back at me, grinning with 2 missing front teeth. She had my nose, my chin, those same green eyes with gold flecks. She was wearing a pink dress I swear I remembered owning. "I have to go," I said, backing away. "I'm sorry, I have to go." I turned and ran out of the pharmacy, leaving my prescription, my dignity, and possibly my entire identity scattered on that floor. The rain hit my face like cold needles, but I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I sat there, engine off, rain pounding on the windshield, trying to make sense of what just happened. But here's the thing about the truth. It doesn't care if you're ready for it. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. Sometimes it finds you on a random Tuesday when you're sick and vulnerable, standing in line at a pharmacy. Sometimes it looks like a stranger's tears and sounds like your own name spoken by someone who's been searching for you for 25 years. My name is Jessica Thompson. At least I thought it was. But that Tuesday afternoon, I started to wonder if my name might actually be Rachel Marie Anderson, and if the life I'd been living was built on someone else's tragedy. That morning had started like any other Tuesday in my life. I woke up at 7:30 in my Pearl District apartment. the one with the exposed brick walls and the window that never quite closed all the way. Rain was pattering against the glass, which was nothing new for Portland in March. My sinuses felt like someone had stuffed them with cotton balls soaked in cement. I rolled over and grabbed my phone, squinting at the bright screen. 3 texts from Ashley asking if we were still on for Thursday coffee. One from my mom with a gif of a dancing cat and the words, "Happy Tuesday, sweetie." And 2 missed calls from my client who wanted to know if I could make the logo more purple but less purple. My name is Jessica Thompson, and I design logos for small businesses. Not the most glamorous job, but it pays the bills and lets me work from home in my pajamas. I'd been doing it for 5 years, ever since I graduated from Portland State with a degree in graphic design and a mountain of student loans. I dragged myself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen. My apartment was small but cozy, decorated with thrift store finds and plants I somehow hadn't killed yet. The walls were covered with my own artwork and photos from family vacations. There was one of me and my parents at Crater Lake when I was 15, all of us squinting in the bright sun. Another from my college graduation, my dad looking proud in his only suit, my mom crying happy tears, Susan and Michael Thompson, the best parents anyone could ask for. Mom worked as a pediatric nurse at OHSU, coming home with stories about brave kids and grateful parents. Dad was an accountant at a firm downtown, the kind of guy who got excited about tax season and actually enjoyed balancing checkbooks. They'd been married 35 years and still held hands when they walked. I made myself tea with honey, hoping it would help my throat. As I waited for the water to boil, my phone rang. Mom's face appeared on the screen, smiling in that photo I'd taken at her birthday dinner last year. "Morning, sweetie," she said when I answered. "How are you feeling?" "Like someone filled my head with concrete," I croaked. "Did you call the doctor? You know how you get with sinus infections. Remember that time in high school when you let it go too long and ended up with pneumonia?" I did remember. Mom had stayed home from work for 3 days, making me soup and forcing me to drink what felt like gallons of water. She'd slept on a chair in my room because she was worried about my breathing. "I'll go to the walk-in clinic," I promised. "Good. Oh, and don't forget about Emma's wedding next month. Aunt Karen called yesterday to make sure you got the invitation. You know how she gets about RSVPs. Emma was my cousin, Aunt Karen's daughter. We'd grown up together, spending summers at the coast, building sandcastles and searching for shells. The Thompson family was small but close. Just my parents, Aunt Karen and Uncle Bill, and their 2 kids. My grandparents had all passed before I was born, which I'd always thought was sad. No stories about Grandma's cookies or Grandpa's war tales like other kids had. After I hung up with Mom, I took a shower, threw on my dad's old University of Oregon sweatshirt and some jeans, and headed to the walk-in clinic. The doctor confirmed what I already knew: sinus infection. She sent me off with a prescription for antibiotics and instructions to rest. The rain had picked up by the time I left the clinic. I sat in my Honda Civic for a moment, debating whether to fill the prescription now or just go home and sleep. Responsibility 1. The Walgreens on Northwest 23rd was only 5 minutes away. I found a parking spot right in front, which felt like a small miracle. Inside, the pharmacy was busy but not packed. An elderly man was arguing about insurance coverage. A young mom was juggling a toddler and a prescription bag. Normal Tuesday afternoon stuff. I handed my prescription to the pharmacy tech, a kid who looked about 12 but was probably in college. 20 minutes, he said without looking up. So I wandered the aisles, picking up things I didn't need. Chapstick, a magazine with spring organizing tips on the cover, a bag of cough drops, normal things for a normal person living a normal life. If someone had told me that in 20 minutes everything I believed about myself would crumble, I would have laughed. I was Jessica Thompson. I had baby pictures on my parents' mantle starting at age 3. I had a birth certificate, a social security number, a history. But histories, I was about to learn, can be rewritten. And sometimes the most ordinary moments are just the calm before everything changes. The pharmacy line moved slowly. I shifted my weight from foot to foot, trying to ignore the pressure in my sinuses. The woman in front of me was buying what looked like half the gardening section: gloves, plant food, and one of those little hand shovels. She had gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and wore a cardigan that reminded me of something my mom would own. When she turned around to leave, our eyes met. The change in her expression was instant and terrifying. Her face went from pleasant distraction to complete shock, the color draining away like someone had pulled a plug. Her mouth opened slightly, and the bag of gardening supplies slipped from her hand. "Oh my God," she whispered. I bent down to help her pick up the scattered items. "Are you okay? Do you need to sit down?" She grabbed my wrist as I handed her the gloves. Her grip was stronger than I expected. "You look just like my sister." I straightened up, gently pulling my hand back. "People say I have one of those faces." "No," she shook her head violently. "No, you don't understand. It's not just a resemblance. It's everything. The way you tilt your head, your nose, your eyes, even that scar." Her finger pointed to the small mark above my right eyebrow. I touched it reflexively, the way I always did when someone mentioned it. "I got this falling off my bike." "When you were 7, she said. It wasn't a question. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because Rachel got that scar when she was 7, 2 weeks before she disappeared." Her voice cracked on the last word. "She was trying to ride without training wheels, hit a rock and went over the handlebars. 3 stitches at St. Mary's Hospital." The pharmacy suddenly felt too warm. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. "I think you're confused. My name is Jessica." "What's your full name?" She leaned forward, her eyes searching mine with desperate intensity. "Jessica Thompson." The words came out automatically. Then I added, without thinking, "Jessica Rachel Thompson." The woman made a sound like she'd been punched. Her purse hit the floor. "Rachel, your middle name is Rachel." "It's a common name," I said, but my voice sounded strange to my own ears. "How old are you?" 32. "Born in 1993? I nodded, unable to speak. Rachel would be 32, born May 15th, 1993. Tears were streaming down her face now. She had green eyes with gold flecks, just like yours. She was left-handed. "Are you left-handed?" I looked down at my left hand, still clutching my prescription paper. "Lots of people are left-handed." She had a birthmark on her left shoulder shaped like a crescent moon. My mother had the same one. It runs in our family. The prescription paper crumpled in my fist. I did have that birthmark. I'd always thought it was unique, special. My college boyfriend used to trace it with his finger. But how could this stranger know about it? "I need to show you something." The woman fumbled in her purse, pulling out a worn leather wallet. From inside, she extracted a photograph, holding it with shaking hands. "This is Rachel. This was taken 3 days before she went missing." I looked at the photo and felt the world tilt. A little girl grinned at the camera, missing her 2 front teeth. She wore a pink bicycle helmet and matching knee pads. Behind her was a red bike with white streamers on the handlebars. But it was her face that made me grab the pharmacy counter for support. It was my face. Not similar, not resembling. It was exactly my face from the photos on my parents' mantle. The earliest photo they had of me was from my 3rd birthday, they said. Everything before that was lost in a house fire. "She was playing in our backyard," the woman continued, her voice hollow. "In Denver, I went inside to answer the phone. It was my mother calling about Sunday dinner. I was only gone 5 minutes. When I came back, the gate was open and Rachel was gone. We searched for hours, days, years." "I'm not her," I said, but the words felt like a lie. "I'm from Portland. My parents are Susan and Michael Thompson. I've always been Jessica." "Then how do you explain this?" She pulled out another photo. "This is what the age progression specialist said Rachel would look like at 30. I stared at the computer-generated image. It could have been my driver's license photo. "What was her last name?" I heard myself ask. "Anderson. Rachel Marie Anderson. I'm Carol Anderson. I'm your sister." That's when the antibiotics slipped from my hand, the bottle breaking open on impact, pills scattering across the floor like tiny white secrets I could no longer keep contained. I ran out of the pharmacy like the building was on fire. The automatic doors couldn't open fast enough. I burst through them into the rain, gasping for air that wouldn't come. My car was right there, just 20 feet away, but it felt like miles. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice before managing to unlock the door. Inside the car, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The rain hammered against the windshield, creating a wall of water between me and the world. I couldn't stop seeing that photo, that little girl with my face. Rachel Marie Anderson. The name echoed in my head like a song I couldn't remember learning. I drove home on autopilot, ran up the 2 flights to my apartment, and slammed the door behind me. My reflection in the hallway mirror stopped me cold. I stared at my face, searching for proof that I was who I'd always believed I was. But all I saw were questions. I went straight to the bookshelf where my parents kept our family photo albums when I was growing up. I had copies of some of them. My hands trembled as I pulled out the oldest one, labeled Jessica's Early Years in my mom's neat handwriting. The first photo showed me at my 3rd birthday party. Chocolate cake smeared across my face, a pointed party hat sliding off my head. I flipped the page. Me at Christmas, maybe 3.5, hugging a stuffed elephant. Another page. First day of preschool, age 4, wearing a Minnie Mouse backpack. I flipped backward. Nothing. No baby pictures, no toddler photos, no first steps or first words or first anything. My life, according to these albums, began at age 3. I grabbed my phone and called my mom. She answered on the 2nd ring. "Hi, sweetie, did you get your prescription filled?" "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." "Jessica, what's wrong? You sound upset." "Why don't I have any baby pictures?" The silence stretched too long. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. "We've told you this before. The house fire when you were 3, we lost everything." "What house fire? Where were we living?" "In California, before we moved to Portland." "Where in California?" Another pause. "Sacramento." "What was our address?" "Jessica, why are you asking about this now?" "Just answer me, Mom, please. What was our address?" "I don't remember the exact address. It was so long ago." "You remember everything. You still have the receipt from my first day of kindergarten shoes. How can you not remember where we lived?" "Jessica, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I went to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror, pulling my shirt off my left shoulder. There it was. The birthmark I'd never really thought about, shaped exactly like a crescent moon. I called Ashley. "Can you come over? Right now?" "Jess, I'm at work. What's wrong? Yep, please, I need you." 20 minutes later, she was at my door, still in her dental hygienist scrubs. I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a rush. The woman at the pharmacy, the photos, the missing sister named Rachel, the birthmark. Ashley listened, her face growing more concerned with each detail. "Okay, let's think about this logically. It could be a coincidence. Rachel is a common name. Lots of kids fall off bikes. And the birthmark? And the fact that I have no photos before age 3, and that my parents can't remember where we lived. Maybe they're telling the truth about the fire. Then why can't they remember the address? Why have they never taken me back to California to show me where we used to live? Why don't I know any family friends from before Portland?" Ashley bit her lip. "What do you want to do?" "I need to know the truth." I pulled out my laptop and opened Facebook. "Help me find her." It didn't take long. Carol Anderson, retired teacher, lives in Portland. The profile picture showed her with what looked like grandchildren. Her cover photo was a garden in full bloom. "That's her," I whispered. "That's the woman from the pharmacy." I clicked on her photos, scrolling through years of family gatherings, holidays, ordinary life. Then I found it. An album titled Never Forgotten. My finger hovered over it for a moment before clicking. The first photo knocked the breath out of me. A family portrait. A younger Carol, maybe early 30s, with a man who must have been her husband, a girl about 10 years old, and a younger girl about 7, with a gap-toothed grin. The caption read, "The last photo of our complete family." Rachel went missing 2 weeks later. We never stop hoping. I stared at that little girl's face, at my face. "Oh my God," Ashley whispered. "Jess, you need to meet with her." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. With trembling fingers, I typed out a message. "Mrs. Anderson, this is Jessica from the pharmacy. I think we need to talk." 3 days later, I sat across from Carol Anderson at a small cafe on Hawthorne. She'd responded to my message within minutes, suggesting we meet somewhere public but quiet. I'd barely slept since the pharmacy encounter, spending my nights staring at photos and searching for memories that didn't exist. Carol arrived carrying a large tote bag and a manila folder. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying for days. Maybe she had been. She sat down carefully, as if sudden movements might scare me away. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly. "I know this must be overwhelming." I nodded, not trusting my voice. She pulled out the manila folder first, spreading its contents across the small table. Newspaper clippings, missing person flyers, police reports, an entire life documented in desperate searches. "This was in the Denver Post," she said, pointing to a headline. "Local girl vanishes from backyard." The article was dated June 3rd, 1998. We'd just moved to that house, new neighborhood. I thought the fence was secure. She showed me another clipping. Rachel Marie Anderson, age 7, brown hair, green eyes, 42 inches tall, 45 pounds, wearing a yellow sundress with butterflies, left-handed, scar above right eyebrow, birthmark on left shoulder. My hand went unconsciously to my shoulder. "The police thought she wandered off and got lost," Carol continued. "Then they thought maybe she'd been taken by someone. We had volunteers searching for weeks. My husband took a leave from work. We hired private investigators." She pulled out a photo album next, the one I'd seen glimpses of on Facebook. This was Rachel's first day of school. She was so excited, insisted on wearing her new light-up shoes even though they didn't match her dress. Page after page of a life interrupted, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, a trip to the zoo. In every photo I saw myself, not someone who looked like me. Me. "This was taken the morning she disappeared," Carol said, her voice breaking. She showed me a Polaroid of a little girl eating cereal, grinning at the camera with milk on her chin. She was going through a phase where she wanted photos of everything. I must have taken 50 pictures that week alone. "I don't remember any of this," I whispered. "You were so young. Trauma can affect memory, especially in children." Carol reached into her bag again and pulled out a small stuffed elephant, worn and faded with age. "This was yours, your favorite toy. You called him Peanut. You wouldn't go anywhere without him." I stared at the elephant. Something stirred in my mind. Not quite a memory, but an echo of one. The feeling of soft gray fur against my cheek. "My daughter Emma found him under Rachel's bed a week after she disappeared. I've kept him all these years, hoping someday I'd be able to give him back to you." "This doesn't prove anything," I said, but my voice was weak. "Lots of kids have stuffed elephants." Carol nodded. "You're right. That's why I brought this." She pulled out a DNA test kit. "I already took mine. If you're willing, we can know for certain." I stared at the kit. Such a small thing to hold such enormous truth. "What happened to your husband?" I asked. "David died 5 years ago. Heart attack. He never gave up hope, but the not knowing destroyed him. Every time the phone rang, every time someone knocked on the door, he thought it might be news about Rachel." She wiped her eyes. "He would have been so happy to meet you." "And Emma?" "She's 37 now, married with 2 kids. She was 10 when you disappeared. She blamed herself for years, thought she should have been watching you better. It affected her whole life. She became a social worker specializing in missing children cases." I picked up the DNA kit with shaking hands. "How long for results?" 2 weeks if we pay for expedited processing. 2 weeks to know if my entire life was a lie. I opened the kit and followed the instructions, swabbing the inside of my cheek, while Carol watched with tears streaming down her face. "There's something else," she said as I sealed the sample. "Your parents, Susan and Michael Thompson. I need to know how they got you." "They're good people," I said defensively. "They love me." "I'm not saying they don't. But Jessica, if you're Rachel, they've had someone else's child for 25 years. They've known you were missing. Your face has been on milk cartons and websites and TV shows. How did they never see it?" I thought about my parents' reluctance to travel, their vague answers about our life before Portland, the way they'd always change the subject when I asked about extended family. "We'll have answers soon," Carol said gently. "But in my heart, I already know. A mother knows her child even after 25 years. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her touch was warm, familiar in a way that made my chest tight. I never stopped looking for you, Rachel. Not for a single day. The DNA results came back in 10 days instead of 2 weeks. I'd been checking my email obsessively, refreshing every few minutes, my stomach in knots. When the notification finally appeared, I stared at it for 20 minutes before finding the courage to open it. 99.9% match. I was Rachel Marie Anderson. I sat on my bathroom floor and cried until I couldn't breathe. Not sad tears, exactly. Not happy ones either. They were tears of complete dissolution, like I was melting away and reforming as someone else entirely. The confrontation with my parents was the hardest thing I've ever done. I drove to their house on a Sunday, knowing they'd both be home. Mom answered the door with her usual bright smile, but it faded when she saw my face. "We need to talk," I said. They sat on their beige couch holding hands as I showed them the DNA results. Mom started crying immediately. Dad's face went gray. "We wanted a baby so badly," Mom whispered. "We'd tried for 10 years. 3 miscarriages. Failed adoptions. Then Michael's cousin called. Said she knew someone who had a little girl who needed a home. The mother was supposedly a drug addict who'd abandoned her." "You knew," I said. "You had to know that wasn't true." Dad finally spoke, his voice barely audible. "We suspected, but we were desperate. And you were so perfect, so sweet. We told ourselves we were saving you." "From what? From a family who loved me, who searched for me for 25 years? "We moved here from Ohio, not California," Mom admitted. "Changed our names slightly. Michael was Mark before. I was Sandra, not Susan. We created new identities and never looked back. Every missing child poster, every news story, you had to have seen my face." "We avoided them," Dad said. "Never watched the news. Never looked at those posters. We convinced ourselves you were better off with us." They'd loved me, that was true. Given me piano lessons and helped with homework and cheered at every soccer game. But they'd also stolen me from another family who'd loved me first. They'd let Carol Anderson spend 25 years wondering if her daughter was dead or alive. The legal complexities took months to sort out. My parents faced charges for custodial interference and identity fraud. Their lawyers argued that the statute of limitations had passed, that they'd been good parents, that I'd had a wonderful life. All true, but it didn't erase the crime. In the end, they received probation and community service. The judge considered their age, their otherwise clean records, and my own complicated feelings about punishment. I didn't want them in prison. I just wanted the truth. Meeting Emma for the first time was surreal. My sister. She looked like me around the eyes, had the same laugh. Her kids, my nephew and niece, accepted me with the simple openness of children. "Are you the aunt who was lost?" 7-year-old Lily asked. "Grandma said you were lost, but now you're found." Carol introduced me to the rest of the Anderson family at a barbecue that felt like stepping into an alternate life. Aunts and uncles who'd searched for me. Cousins who'd grown up hearing about the missing girl. They welcomed me with tears and hugs and 25 years of stored-up love. I kept my name as Jessica professionally, but added Rachel legally. Jessica Rachel Anderson Thompson. A mouthful, but it felt right. I was both people now, the one who was lost and the one who was found. The Thompsons are still in my life. It's complicated and sometimes painful, but they're the only parents I remember. We have dinner once a month. Careful conversations over familiar food. They're in therapy, working through their choices. So am I. Carol and I have coffee every Tuesday now. She's teaching me family history, filling in the blanks. Sometimes she brings Peanut the elephant, and I hold him while she talks. I'm starting to remember things. The swing set in the backyard. The way David used to toss me in the air. Emma braiding my hair. The pharmacy where it all started has become a strange landmark in my life. I still go there, still stand in the same spot sometimes, thinking about how a chance encounter can unravel everything you think you know about yourself. Here's what I've learned. Identity isn't just about who you think you are. It's about who you've been, who you've lost, and who you choose to become. I was stolen, but I was also loved. I was lost, but I was also living. These contradictions don't cancel each other out. They layer together like paint on a canvas, creating something complex and beautiful and entirely mine. My story went viral after the local news picked it up. Strangers message me about their own identity questions, their own family mysteries. I tell them all the same thing. The truth will find you when it's ready. Sometimes in the most ordinary places, like a pharmacy line on a rainy Tuesday, when you least expect your whole world to change. If you found this story meaningful, please share it with others who might need to hear it. Leave a comment about your own experiences with family, identity, or unexpected discoveries. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel